When she finally told the world what he'd been hiding, she thought she was reclaiming her freedom. Instead, she signed her death warrant. The line hits like a hammer, echoing through the silence of a suburban American night. It sets the stage: a woman, a secret, and a price too high to imagine. The town of Riverview, Pennsylvania, was the kind of place where crime barely made the evening news. A community of tidy cul-de-sacs, kids riding bikes past manicured lawns, and neighbors who waved whether they knew you or not. For Emily Harris, a 28-year-old teacher at the local elementary school, Riverview was both home and haven. Emily was beloved in the community. Her bright smile, her patience with students, and her reputation for being the kind of woman you'd trust with your kids, your secrets, or your life. But beneath the surface of this picturesque town, and beneath Emily's own happy exterior, lay the dark beginning of a story no one could have imagined. It started the way so many modern relationships do. In 2017, Emily met Daniel Whitaker through mutual friends at a 4th of July barbecue. Daniel was the kind of man who drew eyes without even trying. Tall, charming, with the kind of confidence that made you feel both noticed and important when he looked at you. He wasn't from Riverview. He had moved there a year earlier, claiming he wanted a quiet place to settle down after years of too much city life. He worked in real estate, wore tailored shirts that made him stand out in the small-town setting, and had the gift of turning every conversation into a story. Emily, shy by nature but ready for love, was captivated. He seemed safe yet exciting, like someone who could expand her world without ever taking her out of it. Friends noticed how quickly Daniel pursued her. He wasn't casual about it. Within weeks, he was sending flowers to her school, picking her up with surprise coffees, and talking about the future in a way that sounded romantic rather than rushed. Emily, who had been single for almost 2 years after a painful breakup, told her sister Megan, "I think he could be the one." For the first few months, Daniel was everything Emily thought she wanted. He cooked her dinner on weeknights, remembered small details about her students, and even started attending Sunday church with her family. He called her parents Mr. and Mrs. Harris and won them over with his old-fashioned manners. Her friends saw the couple and envied how seamlessly Emily had slipped into what looked like a fairy tale romance. But sometimes, just sometimes, Emily noticed little things. A flash of irritation when a male colleague texted her about school projects. A moment of silence when she mentioned a night out with her girlfriends. A habit of asking too many questions: where she went, who she talked to, how long she stayed. Daniel always smoothed it over with a smile or a kiss. "I just worry about you. You're too good for this world," he would say. Emily convinced herself it was love. That kind of attention meant he cared, right? The first real fracture appeared one autumn evening. Emily and Daniel had been dating for 6 months when she invited him to join her colleagues for a Friday happy hour. Daniel agreed, reluctantly. At the bar, everything seemed fine. Daniel laughed, charmed her coworkers, and fit in as always. But when they got back to her car, his expression hardened. "You didn't have to laugh that hard at Mr. Donnelly's jokes," he muttered. Emily froze. "He's my coworker, Dan. It was just friendly." But Daniel pressed. "Friendly? He touched your arm 3 times. You didn't notice?" It wasn't the words that unsettled Emily. It was the intensity in his eyes. A flash of something she hadn't seen before. Possessive. Sharp. She brushed it off, assuring him there was nothing between her and anyone else. He eventually softened, apologizing for being silly, but that night lingered with her. As much as Daniel loved to ask about Emily's life, he rarely shared details of his own. His childhood? Vague. He mentioned moving around a lot, but never explained why. His parents? He said they were complicated and changed the subject. His career? He was successful in real estate, but Emily realized she had never actually seen his office or met a single colleague. Whenever she pressed, Daniel grew defensive. "Why does it matter? Don't you trust me?" She wanted to. She did. But sometimes, at night, she wondered if she truly knew the man lying next to her. By the spring of 2018, Emily and Daniel were serious. Marriage had entered the conversation, at least from his side. Her family liked him mostly, but Megan, her older sister, wasn't convinced. One evening after dinner, Megan pulled Emily aside. "I don't know, Em. He's charming, sure, but something about him doesn't add up. He never talks about his past. He's controlling in little ways. Don't you see it?" Emily defended him, as people often do when blinded by love. "He just cares, that's all. You'd see it if you spent more time with us." Megan frowned. "I just don't want you to get hurt." It was a warning Emily didn't want to hear, and one she would later wish she had. The more time passed, the more Daniel's subtle control grew. He convinced Emily to spend less time with her friends. "They don't really understand us." He pushed her to dress more modestly. "I love you natural. You don't need to draw attention." He began showing up unexpectedly at her school during breaks. "I just missed you." To outsiders, it looked like devotion. To Emily, it began to feel like suffocation. Still, she rationalized it. She told herself that all relationships required compromise. She wanted to believe that this was love, not warning signs. By Christmas of that year, Daniel proposed. It wasn't a grand spectacle. He asked in her parents' living room, kneeling in front of the family Christmas tree. Her parents cried. Megan clapped hesitantly. Emily said yes, though in her heart, the answer carried a flicker of doubt. That night, when she looked at the diamond on her finger, she whispered to herself, "I should be happier than this." But she didn't dare admit that to anyone. Engagement changed Daniel, or maybe it revealed who he had always been. He became more possessive, more insistent on knowing her every move. Arguments flared over nothing. He raised his voice. Once, in a heated moment, he slammed his fist against the wall so hard Emily jumped. He apologized instantly, swearing it would never happen again. "I just love you too much. You don't know what you mean to me." Emily forgave him, again, but the cracks were widening. Then one evening in early spring, Emily stumbled upon something that shook her. She had borrowed Daniel's laptop to send an email. As she clicked through his files, she found a folder labeled Contracts. Inside weren't real estate documents. Instead, there were letters from another woman, passionate, recent, and signed with initials Emily didn't recognize. One letter stopped her cold. "I can't keep living like this, Danny. You promised me you'd leave her. If she finds out about us, what happens then?" Emily's hands trembled. Daniel had another life, another relationship, another woman. Emily confronted him that night. At first, Daniel denied it. Then when she showed him the letter, he turned cold. "You shouldn't have gone through my things," he snapped. Emily was devastated. She felt humiliated, betrayed, and terrified of what this meant. For the first time in their relationship, she saw the truth. Daniel wasn't who he claimed to be. And she wasn't going to stay silent. A week later, Emily made a decision that would set the course for everything to come. She confided in a close friend from work. She told her sister again, and she began writing a statement, planning to reveal Daniel's double life to everyone in their community. What Emily didn't know was that Daniel had already discovered her intentions. And for him, exposure wasn't just embarrassing, it was dangerous. Because the secret Emily uncovered wasn't just about infidelity. It was about something much darker.
The first cracks appeared so small, Emily barely noticed them. At first, it was just Daniel's habit of calling multiple times a day. If she didn't answer, he'd leave a sweet, almost needy voicemail. "I just miss you, Em. Call me back when you can. I hate not hearing your voice." It felt flattering, endearing even, but over time, the calls became more persistent. 10 calls in an afternoon, then 20. If she didn't pick up, he'd send rapid-fire texts. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Who are you with?" Emily laughed it off when friends teased her about his clinginess. "He just really loves me," she'd say, brushing away her unease. But in private, she began to feel suffocated. Daniel's love soon transformed into surveillance. He insisted on knowing her schedule down to the minute. If she said she was going to the grocery store, he demanded proof. Photos, receipts, sometimes even a video call from the aisles. Emily's best friend, Kara, noticed the change. One night over wine, Kara leaned in and whispered, "Em, this isn't normal. He's not just protective, he's controlling you." Emily's smile faltered. Deep down, she knew Kara was right, but Daniel had a way of twisting everything. When she confronted him gently about his constant check-ins, he melted into apologies. "I just love you so much. I can't lose you. Don't you see? The thought of another man looking at you makes me crazy." And just like that, Emily softened. She told herself it was passion, not possession. The breaking point came at Kara's birthday dinner. Emily wore a navy blue dress that hugged her curves. She looked radiant. But halfway through the evening, Daniel's jaw clenched as another man, a coworker, complimented her smile. Back at the apartment, he exploded. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Do you enjoy flaunting yourself for other men?" Emily, stunned, tried to calm him down. "Daniel, he was just being nice. I wasn't flirting." But Daniel wasn't listening. His voice cracked like a whip. "Don't play me for a fool. I know what you're doing." That night marked a shift. The apartment, once a safe haven, became a place of walking on eggshells. Emily stopped wearing dresses. She avoided social outings without him. She canceled plans with Kara and other friends because every time she tried, Daniel would guilt her into staying. By winter, Emily was isolated. Daniel had maneuvered her away from her support system, spinning narratives of betrayal. "Kara doesn't like me because she wants you to herself. Your family doesn't understand us. They'll just ruin what we have." Emily, torn between her love and her instincts, withdrew. She told herself she was just protecting the relationship, keeping the peace. But behind Daniel's smothering love, there was a darkness Emily didn't fully understand. A secret he had buried, one he feared she might expose. The first direct threat came late one night. They had argued after Emily insisted she wanted to visit her mother alone. Daniel's face twisted in a way she'd never seen before. "If you ever leave me, Emily, I'll make sure you regret it. No one else can have you. No one." A chill ran through her. For the first time, she considered that Daniel's love wasn't love at all. It was obsession. She confided in Kara, who urged her to get out. But Emily was trapped in the cycle of abuse. After every threat came remorse. Flowers delivered to her office. Handwritten notes. "I can't live without you. You're my everything." And Emily, empathetic to a fault, forgave him again and again. The night everything snapped began like any other, a cold March evening. Emily had just returned from work, exhausted. Daniel was waiting, pacing in the living room. On the table sat Emily's phone, unlocked. He had gone through her messages. "Who's Michael?" he demanded. Emily's stomach dropped. Michael was a coworker she had texted about a project deadline, nothing more. But Daniel's face was thunderous. "You're lying to me," he hissed. "I can see it in your eyes." Emily's voice trembled as she tried to explain, but Daniel wasn't listening. His rage had consumed him. And then he said the words that would haunt Emily forever. "If you betray me, if you ever tell anyone what I've done, I swear, Emily, I'll kill you." For the first time, Emily realized that Daniel wasn't just jealous. He was dangerous. And buried beneath his paranoia was a secret so dark he'd do anything to keep it hidden. That night, Emily made a choice. She confided in Kara over the phone, whispering, "Kara, if anything happens to me, It's Daniel. He said he'd kill me if I ever revealed his secret. But Emily didn't know Daniel had overheard that call, and now the clock was ticking. The tension had reached its breaking point. Daniel's mask had slipped. His threats had turned deadly, and Emily had unknowingly signed her own death warrant by exposing his secret to Kara. The stage was set for the crime that would shatter everything.
The quiet calm of Hollow Creek was shattered the night Emily's lifeless body was discovered. News of her death spread through the small town like wildfire. Friends, neighbors, and church members stood in disbelief. Emily, the bright and gentle soul everyone loved, was gone. But the circumstances of her death were not just tragic, they were chilling. Police had arrived at the farmhouse after Daniel made a frantic 911 call, claiming Emily had fallen during an argument. But the crime scene told a darker story. Emily's body was sprawled across the hardwood floor, her head bleeding, her arms marked with bruises. What looked like an accident to an outsider quickly unraveled into something far more sinister. Forensic teams found inconsistencies immediately. The blood spatter didn't align with Daniel's story of a fall. The bruises on Emily's arms showed signs of restraint. Neighbors reported hearing raised voices that night, not the sound of a tragic stumble. And then there was Emily's journal, hidden beneath her mattress. The entries read like a diary of entrapment. "He's watching me more closely every day. I feel like I can't breathe. If something happens to me, I need people to know it wasn't an accident." That single line changed everything. It wasn't just a domestic dispute gone wrong. It was premeditated violence wrapped in control, fear, and obsession. Detectives pieced together a timeline from Emily's friends. She had confided in Kara, her best friend, weeks earlier, admitting she was afraid of Daniel. She had even told Kara she planned to leave him after finally revealing his secret, one Daniel was desperate to keep buried. And that secret? Daniel had a history no one in Hollow Creek knew about. Years earlier, in another state, he had been accused of assaulting a former girlfriend. Charges were dropped, but the pattern was there: manipulation, jealousy, and rage when women tried to leave him. When detectives confronted Daniel, his composure cracked. At first, he clung to his story. Emily had tripped, he panicked, and that was it. But under pressure, his tone shifted. Anger flared, then silence. It was silence that spoke louder than words. The courtroom was packed when Daniel went to trial. Emily's parents sat in the front row, clutching each other's hands, their grief raw and visible. Kara testified about Emily's fears. The journal was read aloud, Emily's words echoing through the room like a voice reaching from the grave. The prosecution painted Daniel as a man consumed by control, jealous of Emily's independence, terrified she would leave him once the truth came out. The defense tried to cling to the tragic accident narrative, but the evidence stacked against Daniel was overwhelming. The bruises, the forensic analysis, the journal, the testimony, it all formed a chilling mosaic of manipulation turned murder. When the jury returned, the verdict was clear: guilty of second-degree murder. Daniel's face drained of color as the words were read. For Emily's family, it was justice, but not healing. Nothing could bring her back. In Hollow Creek, Emily's death became a haunting reminder that danger often hides behind familiar doors. At the candlelight vigil held in her memory, her former students placed flowers by her picture, tears streaming down their cheeks. Kara spoke briefly, her voice trembling but firm. Emily was more than a victim. She was light, kindness, and hope. We cannot let her story fade. The tragedy forced the town into uncomfortable conversations about domestic violence and coercive control. Emily was loved, admired, and seemingly safe. Yet behind closed doors, she was trapped. Looking back, the red flags were there. Daniel's possessiveness, his temper, the way Emily's smile began to dim. But like so many victims, she believed love could change him. She believed her devotion might soften his rage. By the time she realized the truth, it was too late. Her story forces us to ask, would we have seen the danger signs, or would we too have been blinded by love? And perhaps more importantly, how many others are still trapped, right now, in silence and fear? If Emily's story touched you, share it so her voice continues to be heard. And ask yourself, how well do you really know the person you love? Subscribe for more chilling stories where love turns deadly.